interesting presentation.
Thank you.
The second speaker is, sorry that of course everybody apologizes when they say Özgür Gürbüz. Good? I was repeating it in my mind. And the paper is called Birgün Daily Newspaper. I will represent our friend in a few words. Oz, as he likes to be called, has been writing on environmental economy and energy since '94. He worked for several newspapers and magazines, including, and I'm not saying the names, just the last one. This is Birgün. Few papers, and also the radio and the international radio in Beijing. He has been a columnist in the daily newspaper for the last 4 years, and few years he was away from journalism. He worked as an independent energy consultant, and also as an energy and environmental movement in few environmental movements in Turkey. He also was an energy campaigner for Greenpeace Mediterranean. He is actively involved in the environmental movements in Turkey, and he is currently the communication manager of WWF Turkey. He has a degree in business administration and holds a diploma of MSc computing from Oxford University. And the title of his talk is Public Initiatives Against Privatization in Turkey. So please, thank you.
Thank you for the long introduction. The Oxford Brookes University, actually, there is a huge difference between them, so I'm not that smart. Thank you very much for inviting me, and thank you for the Van Leer Institute here in Jerusalem, and also Friedrich Ebert Stiftung Foundation. I'm really happy to be here. When I saw the program, I was also really excited, and then I wish we could somehow repeat this one or similar sessions in Turkey as well. Yes. That's my wish too. And you're welcome to Istanbul or maybe in somewhere else. Right, what I will try to do here, I mean, after CP, just like I could see, like we have like many common issues, you know, especially who is controlling, who is regulating what, I think is an issue also like in Turkey as well, especially when the new, you know, the subjects comes into place in environment. Some like certain and old issues, you know, like erosion, water, soil erosion and everything, somehow, you know, we know who is responsible. When the things like get a bit mixed up, especially in climate change, for example, then nobody knows or nobody is responsible for anything. So I can see the similarities in Turkey as well. What I will try to do here, I will give a like little short summary on privatization in Turkey in general, but like mostly I'll be focusing on energy issues. And I won't go through everything, just like concessions to hydropower plants and everything. I will just leave this one out a bit. It's a bit like long issue, but you will have a kind of an idea of like what's going on, and you can guess what's been happening in hydro issues as well, or water issues in Turkey. I will try to focus on mostly on thermal coal power plants, nuclear, well, main energy issues, and try to leave a solution, or like, you know, well, I will offer a solution to everybody here, so it could be a common solution. It doesn't have to be in Turkey or in Israel, like in everywhere. This is that kind of a principle. Wherever I go, I try to find a solution, or at least like open up a discussion on that, because otherwise just like, you know, pointing at the problems and then going back home watching football would be something else, but otherwise I wouldn't be doing this job actually I've been doing for like many years. Anyway, so summary is, yeah, Turkey is just like being, you know, choosing the liberal policies since after the military coup in 1980. It was a kind of one clear direction, and many speakers actually before me like stressed on that. And then in 1985 and 2015 we had like generated $66 billion from the privatization, and then kind of a big chunk of it just comes from the energy privatizations. You will see my other slides is around 21 billion in just like last 6.5 years, only from the energy sector. And then you will see we have also lots of to do. We have already like privatized the biggest refinery in Turkey. We have last year like kind of finalized, and even before that, distribution privatizations of Turkey in 21 different regions, the electricity distributions. And in some cities, like major cities, we have also like privatized the natural gas distribution. And Istanbul is one like coming up for privatization. It will be a huge, again, bid and tender process. And then this year, well, not this year, but like till 2020, they say, but like some of them will be finalized this year. Again, EÜAŞ, this is the Turkish electricity generation company, which used to have the generation of Turkish electricity like nearly 50%. Now is about 28%, if I recall correctly. And they have still like thermal coal power plants, natural gas power plants, and also hydropower plants that will be like privatized up to 2020. And also some distribution unit of petroleum as well. So this is the number I was talking about, 21 billion of income generated via electricity, just like last 6.5 years in Turkey, and 12 billion of it from the distribution network that was like really big deal in 21 regions of Turkey. You will see the map here. And some of them are really like, you know, the kind of nice areas to make like easy money. But some of them are, especially in Kurdish region, are problematic because of the transmission losses and also stolen electricity story. But actually, I mean, I wouldn't get in details, but I just leave a note. The stolen electricity numbers in Istanbul region, some part of Istanbul region, is actually, as a number, like a kilowatt hour, is similar to Kurdish region as well. So there was a kind of loss of nationalistic issues as well playing a role. So, but like still what we are looking at, especially for the electricity generation point of view, EÜAŞ still produces 28% of Turkey's electricity. So they have like 20,000 megawatt of power plants. The Turkey's installed capacity altogether is more than 70,000 megawatts. So it's like a huge lot, but mostly old coal power plants, some new natural gas power plants, and lots of hydro power plants. And some of them will still probably remain in EÜAŞ, like the state-owned, like the big, huge dams, but like small ones, and the coal power plants are definitely to be privatized. This is stated in the government papers on privatization. So what's the problem about that? I mean, what I see the problem, this is, one of them is just like, you know, the development efforts of Turkish government. I mean, this is the like main cause of the government. I always like refer to that as a god. To be frankly, like we created a god of growth in Turkey. So what we do, we sacrifice every single day human lives, rivers, forests, you know, to just like to make this god happy. It became the only thing. Even like many alternative, like, you know, the speakers or politicians, they don't really criticize the economic growth. You know, they don't really criticize if we can have another way, and then they don't really criticize the details of economic growth. For me, just because it's not like about development, it's for me just like different stuff. You know, to make a simple example, if I kill a person in Turkey, then they will call an ambulance. Ambulance will consume oil, and then that will be actually in part of the GDP in Turkey. And let's call it economic growth in whole around, I mean, the world. So we have to change this system anyway, but I like close the parenthesis. This is not the, this is not what I am here. But that has been the main factor. You know, they all look up to this god, and then they try to satisfy this god like by any means. So this profit-driven approach as well created a kind of an economy or heaven for the private companies too. If they want to make a profit, if they want to like increase the growth by any means, then they are welcomed by the Turkish government. So I mean, this is the table what we are looking at. But what they don't realize in Turkey, the economic growth figures, like we got it in 2010, 11, like in China or Asian countries, is just in the past now. I will never come back again. But they are still trying to reach these numbers and then make all the calculations, especially like electricity demand, based on these figures. If you look at it in Turkish authorities' electricity demand projections, every year they make huge mistakes. Every year they alter the projections because they make the projections based on 7%, 8% economic growth, which is not happening anymore, and it won't happen for the like feasible future because of you have already like consumed most of the natural resources. You know, you make like easy profit in a way by just selling the forest. You know, making environmental regulations disappear for the private companies to build the cement factories wherever they want, or the coal power plants without having any obligations under Kyoto Protocol. Turkey doesn't have any obligations, and then tend to have nothing again in Paris Agreement. When you have created this kind of heaven for the like coal power plants, of course the foreign companies will come or will even move their coal power plants from, you know, Western European countries to Turkey. Then you'll have economic growth, but like it will destroy everything else. So I suggest like forget about the economic growth and then look at the reality, look at the real development, which I will try to describe later. So what is happening? I mean, I divided the issues in usual issues or common issues or uncommon issues, like unusual issues, to make it better. Probably you have like similar problems here as well, like or many developing countries, emerging countries have. Like private companies, especially the ones close to the current government, you know, which AKP government have been ruling Turkey like for 13 years, have questionable freedom. I'll give you one example. You know, this is the picture. It was the environmental impact assessment participation meeting in Akkuyu nuclear power plant in the Mediterranean coast, which is not too far away from you. And I was there as a journalist. The meeting lasted around 1 hour. 1 hour because the Russian company who want to build a nuclear power plant in Akkuyu, they left the meeting with police, you know, like kind of protecting them. And then in 1 hour time, there were no speech, no question and answer session, only protest. People were just chanting, you know, making a big demonstration, so they couldn't do anything else. But what happened at the end, Ministry of Environment officials, together with the private company who did the environmental impact assessment report, they signed a paper saying that the participation meeting was properly done. So how can you fight against those guys, you know, who have like certain privilege and the government is turning a blind eye? This is like what happened. I have videos and everything. I showed it everywhere. You know, it's in the also like legal cases. We have lawyers who open, you know, the files against, of course, environmental impact assessments. I gave my pictures and everything, so they're using it. So it's like a legal evidence. But, I mean, the media and the Turkish government is trying to just like, you know, turn a blind eye and then say to the public, like, everything is properly done. There was no speech, nothing at all. So transparency and accountability of private sector is also problematic in Turkey. You know, especially the transparency issue, I think, is just like coming up because of the corruption cases, allegations towards the government, towards the even prime minister and president in Turkey. So we do have problems about this. And then the companies close to the government as well also involved in these allegations. You know, there are like lots of allegations through the media companies, for example, close to Erdogan and his allies. So the media is also another issue for us. I mean, I work for a newspaper with a circulation of like 27,000 in Turkey, but kind of influential because we have like 1 or 2 newspapers who writes, you know, like freely or out of the line of the expectations of the government. So that's been another issue. So this is maybe a usual issue as well, but like that slide, I mean, I have to admit that like I edit last night here. Because I've been listening to the speakers, especially about the outsourcing issue, I thought the environmental impact assessment issue would be part of the maybe privatization problem. Because in Turkey, it was in 1993, I think, the first time it was like, you know, introduced. Then it was privatized, well, outsourced for the certain companies to do environmental impact assessment reports. And I'll give you the figure in Turkey, 98% of the environmental impact assessment reports submitted to the Ministry of Environment have been approved. just only 2% have been rejected by the Ministry of Environment. So basically, it's a formality, huge formality, but like many people makes money out of it. And the case study I brought up here, DOCA is the company, is like one of the biggest environmental impact assessment company. I mean, this is their main business. And they did prepare Akkuyu nuclear power plant, environmental impact assessment, EIA, and also for thermal power plant, big one in Black Sea region, and also wind power plants or any kind. Mainly they are focusing on energy. And in one occasion, for the Akkuyu, for example, they stated that hydropower is not reliable because in the summertime, if there is less rain, you don't have electricity. It may be logical. But in their Fatsa hydropower plant EIA report, same company, said that the hydropower is the best because they don't emit greenhouse gases, and they are also like, the very feasible option, and etc. In another one, and where they were like, the cursing the fossil fuel power plants because of the greenhouse gas emissions, in natural gas environmental impact assessment report, then they reversed everything. They say, oh, the natural gas is very clean source of generating electricity compared to others. So this is the same company preparing a report for every single subject and then giving different results. So I think that this process has to be either controlled by real independent authorities, or just like done by the government itself. So we say, at least the companies can save money. I don't know. I don't believe I said that. Anyway, but like this is the like funny joke, and then really it has to change and it has to tackle too. But the unusual issues, I think they will find them interesting. Yes, in Turkey, the authorities ignore the law. I mean, this is simple as that. We have like many cases, we won, the legal battles. And the construction projects like has to be halted, but they didn't stop it. In like Akkuyu nuclear power plant, in the third bridge project in Istanbul, third airport project in Istanbul, we have like lots of legal battles actually won. And like maybe the old story, but like gold mining issue in Turkey, like many legal battles won, but the government ignored the decisions, even from the highest court sometimes. This is so funny. The environmental impact assessment report, like the first thing we target as an environmentalist normally. And then we won the battle. The second day, they just like issue another environmental impact assessment report, and then the whole process starts again. You just won a battle, you have to pay thousands of liras, to find an expert and everything, which is very difficult. I give you an example. For the Akkuyu nuclear power plant, in one case only, they wanted 85,000 Turkish liras from the environmental organizations to pay for the consultants, like who will observe the issue like independently. 85,000 Turkish liras. And then now the new case came up, same nuclear power issue, another environmental organization opened up, and then they asked 30,000 more. Of course, the NGOs don't have that kind of money, so they are thinking of like dropping the case altogether. So these are like have been the way like the government deal with the issues. But the case study I brought here is very interesting as well. 2012, I think, or 13, the Turkish electricity market law was changed. Like they, to kind of change many articles of it, and one of them was very interesting. Well, I have to say, like, I am the first person to write this one in a newspaper, because this article, it was a provisional one, and was saying that whoever buys EUAŞ, the generation company's coal power plants in Turkey, and they will be exempted from the environmental legislation until the end of 2018. And if the cabinet wants it, they can also give them additional 3 years. So I never seen privatization process with a bonus comes from the environment. They really use it, environment as an asset very clearly, saying that, okay, we will ignore. You buy this coal power plant, it's very clear, this is what they've been saying. Buy this coal power plant, I'll give you like up to 2018, freedom of like every single environmental legislation. So you can just pollute as much as you want. And even they guarantee, I will give you another 3 years, don't worry, as long as I'm in the power. So this has been actually, I mean, after the article, the Greenpeace picked up, and Social Democrat Party went to the Constitutional Court, and then now it has been halted. So this article has been stopped. So it's kind of a good thing for us. But to see the government, how they're really brave on, even just using environment as like a kind of a bonus for the companies in the privatization process. So that's been, I think, one of the horrible examples I've seen in my life. Another small issues, the meter crisis. It's still going on in Ankara, the capital city of Turkey. What happened is privatization of gas distribution network in Ankara. It happened, and they before that, to sell actually the privatization to make it better. I mean, the gas meters were changed, with the card readers and everything. So you have a limit. You cannot upload gas in this summertime where it is relatively cheaper. When the prices goes expensive in the winter time, you have to buy gas exactly that time. So you can have a stock, but very limited stock with this card system. Because you have a card, for example, 100 liras, the limit, so you cannot have more gas even if you have money in the summertime. Because everybody knows when it comes October and November, the gas prices will go up. This is the time where the gas company wants to sell you the gas. So they change all the gas meters to card system. Now, they want to change it again because the company is not apparently happy even with this limit. So they want to make it like normal system, pay-as-you-go system or billing system. So there's a huge issue on this. They're playing with the people, and then they don't even ask you. This is the funniest thing as well. For electricity, they did as well. One day you come home, and then your gas meter or electricity meter has been changed. And the next bill, you just see 75 Turkish liras because of the electricity, new meter of electricity. They don't ask you that. But it's been court cases, and then battle is going on. But this is very unusual issue. You didn't expect, with the privatization, this kind of things will come up. Privatization versus local production, I think I will probably explain that later. But there is one way, the bulk of the big coal power plants, sale of the coal power plants, prevents the idea of because we have an idea of having local, small-scale renewable energy production in wherever is needed. But as long as you sell these coal power plants, especially one in Afshin Elbistan in Turkey, one of the oldest one, has been already 30 years old, and really horrible plants gives you lots of problem. Never work they have 4 units, but I never seen them 4 units working at the same time because they always have problems. Now it's been privatized for 20 years. That means that this coal power plant actually has to be put in the rubbish bin already, have a life extension of 20 years. So I would ideally replace these coal power plants with renewable energy or energy efficiency measures. But now I don't have a choice because it has another 20 years of extension because of the privatization. So that's why the privatizations normally, especially the big power plants, actually blocks the way of renewable energy coming through the Turkish market. And the picture is funny. I could put maybe solar panels on the roof. It would be a better choice, but I like this picture. This is the kind of a phenomenon going on amongst the shepherds in Turkey. The shepherds live on the mountains for 2-3 months, and then they don't really access the electricity, but they just suddenly found about the solar powers. Now it's so funny. I have interviewed a couple of them, and then one of them has a laptop even. They have access on everything with the solar power, and then they carry the solar power with donkeys to to where they are. So that's why it's called donkeys solar power in Turkey, in a funny way. It's been actually in the international news as well. You can read English articles. But it's been very funny way. But I wanted to show that this is not good for the big electricity companies. Who bought big coal power plants for 20 years? They make a simple calculations. They want to know how much electricity they will be selling in 20 years. So they look at the houses, they look at the consumption of every single houses. So they are, making a business plan. But then, if you start to put solar powers on your roof, for example, maybe half of the consumption of electricity is just gone because you generate your own electricity. They are not happy. Simple as that. Whoever bought the distribution tenders, they are not happy because they get commission from every single kilowatt hour of electricity they sell it to you. The wholesale companies, they are not happy. They get commission as well on the electricity. So that's why the privatization of this old type of electricity generation is obstacle front of the renewable energies as well. First, we never thought that because in Turkey we have a problem of like solar power. We don't have really solar. The total installed capacity in Turkey solar power is 140 megawatt. This is the high. Turkey has the highest potential of solar power together with Spain in Europe. 140 megawatts out of 70,000. We generate nothing from solar so far. And Turkish government even introduced a cap on solar power. You can go up to 600 megawatt. But they don't have a cap on coal power or even natural gas that we don't have it. You know, you can build natural gas power plants as much as you want, but when it comes to solar, only up to 600. Maybe later they will release it because they wanted to do the privatizations and they wanted to secure the companies who is buying these coal power plants and everything. They will be able to have a market to sell. Then we understood the issues, who is trying to stop the solar power or renewables in Turkey. This is a bit of general topic. I'm just like moving away from Turkey and come to maybe like common points. I mean, the Volkswagen emission scandal, I think everybody has to think of that. Why? Because when I talk to people in general, they will say, oh, the small companies are really dirty. You know, they can do everything to make profit. But the big companies, we can trust them because they've been regulated, they've been checked, audited. But the cases actually prove that wrong. The theory is wrong. The Volkswagen actually fooled whole world, and then deliberately. It's not a mistake, So this is the biggest car company in the world. And the second thing, like ExxonMobil, BP, the case of BP. When I saw the fine of BP, like $21 billion, I was kind of happy. Oh, that's a good example. Even the biggest oil company, one of the biggest oil company will get a penalty. But then when I get in the details, there are articles on that as well. You can still find it. Then, the payback time is 18 years for BP, like $1 billion a year, $1 billion a year. Actually, it's very kind of easy for them to pay, and the fine actually could be per barrel. According to the rules, it could have been like $4,300, but they only got the penalty of $1,700. So the big companies are still very much in power and even controlling the regulations, jurisdiction and everything. So I think we have to be aware of this kind of a trust to big companies, and then getting away from there to the local and small businesses. Well, this is the question, who will control them? I mean, who will control Volkswagen, for example? And in Turkey, I give you a funny example. The simple car emission test, if you have a car, you have to go through, probably in Israel too. It's done by a company that's been privatized as well. And this company's 1/3 of the share belongs to Doğuş Automotive, which is the same company brings Volkswagen in Turkey. Who is checking your emissions? Actually, the same company who is bringing the Volkswagen and the whole group in Turkey. So we are just that much the kind of sleeping, in a funny way. So, what we do? We can change the ownership model. This is what I'm trying to say. We can just have smaller companies and the local communities, especially on the electricity generation part, they could be part of the solution. How are we going to do that? With community power. When you have a local production of electricity, when you have a share in this little company, for example, 100 of your friends gathered together in your neighbor, put a little small solar power plant. Then you have a shareholder. You know what's going on. You know where the money is coming and then where it's going. And it's up to you, this 100 people, to be in the line of the legal system or to protect environment. I mean, you cannot, I don't want to imagine like 100 corrupt people like getting together and building a power plant, but even one nice people out of 100 will change things and then, you know, control each other. So this is the way I think we have to have a new way of electricity generation system. Instead of privatization, we have to make the money goes to the community and then used by the community as well. So that will also help us the limitation of the big powers. Because the energy is a big business, everybody uses it. If we have the power, if we generate our electricity, consume, and then the income is stay in the community, then the big powers will also lose the strength. So I'll call it also people's power. I think in Turkish also makes sense. And I'm not dreaming. I mean, my German friends over here, they know it very well. And in Denmark, well, in UK as well, in America, now it's also the trend is just going up. This is like from 2012, I think, yeah, the figure. I don't know, it's more or less the same probably, but look at the figure. This is the renewable energy. I mean, we are focusing on renewable energy, not coal, not natural gas, not nuclear, of course, because they need so much money, and also we don't want to have like, you know, the polluting industries. They are like renewable energies, like wind, solar, mostly. And the ownership in Germany, already 47% of the ownership, the renewable energy, belongs to the citizens and the corporations. And institutional also has some part to play. Only 12%, the ones, you know, belong to the big, you know, the big giants, E.ON or RWE, you know, although they didn't get into business. And the communities are very fast acting, and I've seen, like with my eyes as well, it's so funny cooperations going on. I mean, in one village in Germany, the one guy with, I think, a couple of shareholders, they put a biogas plant. I mean, it looks like a kind of, again, like, you know, the small business owned by like few people, but it's not the way. You know, to run the biogas power plant, they need some waste from the agriculture. And the rest of the village actually dealing with agriculture, providing them this waste. They generate electricity and then give these people freely. And the rest, like to the grid, and then make money. So they found like many funny ways to like combine this power, like communicate to each other. And the cooperative trend is just like, again, in slide from Germany, it's going up and up. Like it's 888 cooperatives already in Germany. To summary, I mean, as a summary, I just put the benefits down so we can see like why I'm supporting this way of energy generation. The participation, I mean, I said up and down, but like you can maybe make a different comments or different, you can phrase it differently. But the participation, yes, because we do participate in it. We are involving in every single stage of the process, like from building a power plant, you know, environmental legislations, income distribution, and everything. So we are in the business basically. The community is involved. Unfair distribution of income. It was the problem because the one giant company building a coal power plant, and then you have to buy electricity from them, you know, and then it goes to one source. Now it goes to community. You can maybe like with this money you can build a new school to your village or city. Local production, that's the way to go because that helps like in many ways, but like one simple example, transmission losses in Turkey is like 15%, if you believe it. 1.5. Yeah, but this is the official number. But I have doubt on that. Well, I tell you why I have doubt, because last year, the ex-Minister of Energy said that in the parliament, we lowered it like 15%, which sound is okay. But then INDC, you know, where we submit our contribution to Paris Summit, we put a target to lower our transmission and distribution losses to 15% by 2030. So I don't understand which one is lying or which one is true.
They were very successful already.
Yeah, basically Turkey saying to Paris, we'll be doing nothing in 15 years. Yeah. Or we try just like not to go lower. Anyway, but like this is the official figure, but I reckon it's like 15 to 20%. So well, it's too high, I know. Yeah, especially when you have 250 billion kilowatt hour of electricity generating. So 10% even, it makes like one power plant itself. Anyway, so local production is important also, just like one example, because of you won't lose electricity on transmission or stolen electricity issues. Small scale, which is we wanted again, environmental friendly, and system changer. Because it's changing, like shifting the capital. It's not just because of environment. I want also the system change. Empowering people. This is another issue, and the corruption will be probably less because you will, as a community, be involved in these projects. You will see it. You can check it. You can ask your neighbor. What's going on with this money. You're there, and the political influence. You won't get a bid because if you want it, you will build a power plant. But the politician won't tell you that. So this is your own decision. So they are not involved in this process. And the last one gives hope. This is what I like. And I hope my presentation is giving you a little bit of hope. I mean, this is one of the examples. They're opening up their own power plants in somewhere. I think it was in America, this one. So thank you very much.